Item number 11, ordinance. Social host regulation ordinance for underage drinking, presented by Chief Rob Landon.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. First of all, I'd like to recognize the Steering Abuse Substance Coalition, Nina Martinez and Dolia Aguilar, and the people that are here because they're the ones that really had a lot of information for the social host ordinance. And a little bit of background, first of all. Whereas laws prohibiting furnishing alcoholic beverages to underage persons target furnishing alcohol beverages to underage persons, social host ordinance accountability refers to laws that hold non-commercial individuals responsible for underage drinking on property they own, lease, or control. A practical guide to preventing and dispersing underage drinking parties articulates why regulating underage drinking parties and other gatherings is an important priority and why social host liability laws should be considered an essential law enforcement strategy for deterring these gatherings. Many people dismiss underage drinking as a normal rite of passage in adolescence. However, it is important to remember that alcohol is one of the most common contributors to injury, death, and criminal behavior among youth. Underage alcohol use can have immediate and potentially tragic consequences, as well as long-range harmful consequences, such as increased risk for chronic alcoholic addiction. Enforcement activities that limit youth access to alcohol are critical to reduce underage drinking and its often tragic consequences. One common way that underage drinkers gain access to alcohol is at parties. These parties are commonly large gatherings of young people in a home or in an outdoor area, such as a beach or a park or in some other venue like a warehouse rented for this particular purpose, or other houses. These parties can be particularly problematic because of the number of drinkers involved and large quantities of alcohol consumed. Reports of alcoholic poisoning, traffic crashes, property damage, community disturbances, violence, and sexual assault are all too common as a result of these parties. Teen parties are a primary avenue for underage drinking for high school and college students and a high consumption of alcohol and binge drinking. Meyer, Forrester, Murray, and Wagoner in 1998 found that the most common setting for drinking alcohol among high school seniors was someone else's home. High consumption, 5 or more drinks, is also associated with drinking in larger groups. The authors conclude that interventions that modify the environments in which adolescents find themselves have an impact on alcohol beverage consumption levels. Policies aimed at increasing the liability of adults who provide alcohol to or drink with minors may help to reduce underage drinking. New survey results show local teen drinking rates are higher than the average in California. According to Substance Abuse Steering Coalition, local teens are engaging in high-risk drinking more often than in past years. The Substance Abuse Steering Coalition conducted surveys over the course of several months in 2013. A total of 100 surveys were collected from residents and youth in Yuba City. This data, along with other sources such as the California Healthy Committee, Kids Survey, the Wake Forest School of Medicine, Millennial Youth and a Young Adult Survey, and several others were used to show the need for specific interventions that will help elevate substance use and abuse among our teens and local and young adults. I don't think that read right. Were used to show the need for specific interventions. Results of the 2013 California Healthy Kids Survey show that 17% of 11th graders report being drunk or sick after drinking. 21% of 9th grade and 28% of 11th grade students in Yuba City report having one drink in the last 30 days. Residents of Yuba City reported that 56% had been given alcohol as minors, and 95% believe it is important to have laws protecting minors from alcohol use. According to 44% of Yuba City 11th graders surveyed in 2013, they determined it was very easy to obtain alcohol in Yuba City. Easy youth access to alcohol is supported by anecdotal reports from young persons. In recent focus groups, youth reported they often get alcohol from their own homes or a residence of their friends. 50% of Yuba City youth respondents from a random sample survey conducted by the Wake Forest School of Medicine stated that they received alcohol from a friend or acquaintance. 42.9% said they received alcohol from their own parent or guardian, and 25% said they received alcohol from another parent or guardian. In the same survey of youth, 25% stated that the last time they drank any alcohol was at another person's home. 37.5% stated that they drank alcohol at a home or apartment dorm. And lastly, 33.3% stated that someone else's parents or guardian hosted the last party that they attended. Monitoring the Future survey showed that the most widely used substance abuses were tobacco, alcohol, and marijuana. 22% of high school seniors report binge drinking on a regular basis. The Substance Abuse Steering Coalition supports current research recommendations from the Institute of Medicine and National Research Council. The IOM report recommends a greater emphasis on restricting alcohol access by strengthening laws and enacting ordinances that restrict youth access and home parties. And basically, the analysis is the purpose and intent of this ordinance is to, number one, facilitate the enforcement of laws which prohibit the service and consumption of alcoholic beverages by minors, as well as to deter the service and consumption of alcoholic beverages by minors and promote the reduction of underage drinking. Number two, to establish a duty of persons having control over any premises who knowingly hosts, permits, or allows a gathering at the premises to take reasonable steps to prevent the service and consumption of alcoholic beverages by minors. To protect health, safety, general welfare, and quiet enjoyment of property and properties neighboring the location of these gatherings at which minors are served and consume alcoholic beverages, and to impose civil liability for the recovery of emergency response costs to such gatherings after the first event. The proposed ordinance would make it an infraction for any person having control of any premises to knowingly host, permit, or allow a gathering to take place at the premises where one or more minor consumes an alcoholic beverages whenever such person having control of the premises either one, intentionally serves or causes to be served an alcoholic beverage to a minor for consumption, or two, knows or reasonably knows a minor has consumed an alcoholic beverage and thereafter fails to immediately take appropriate action to prevent further consumption of alcoholic beverages by any minor. It also addresses imposing civil liability for any persons convicted of a second or subsequent response for the actual cost of the emergency response. The fiscal impact to the City of Yuba City would be negligible. No costs are associated with the implementation of the proposed ordinance. The alternative is to not adopt the ordinance or provide staff with direction for adopting the proposed ordinance. The recommendation of staff is to recommend the City Council adopt the social host ordinance as written, conduct a public hearing, and waive the first reading. And with that, I'll open it up to the council for the public hearing.
All right, any questions of staff?
I do have. And to the mayor.
Yes.
Chief, as I read this and I read through the actual ordinance, I see that only at the second offense does this rise then to the level of a misdemeanor.
Correct.
And just for clarity, a misdemeanor means that a person could actually serve up to a year in a county jail should they be convicted of that crime. Why do we start in at such a low level of just a simple fine, it being an infraction for the first offense?
I think that was something the City Council and I talked about. We looked at other ordinances in the throughout the state, and that was kind of the medium where we wanted to head at. But we're obviously open for any changes at the direction of the council.
I mean, I just simply look at this as every time we hear about it, whether it was last year at graduation or it will be this year at graduation, someone will host a party. There will be an impact on our local emergency rooms. There will be an impact within families. There will be fights. There will be potentially auto collisions. There's always the chance of a fatality. Years ago, I responded to a quad fatal outside of a hosted party. And that is something that I wouldn't wish on any other member of our community. The family, they were devastated by what happened that night, and many of them have never recovered. I don't take it lightly, the use of alcohol, and especially someone putting forward a party that they allow individuals or lock them into a safe area, or they're watching after my kid or my neighbor's kid and allowing them to drink. I mean, I look at this as one of those violations that I think that our community should not be lax on, and I think that imposing a strong and clear message, I think, is one way of continuing that message on a larger scale.
Thank you.
Comments?
Just a question for Councilmember Buckland. So, I mean, so we understand this. Obviously, the first one is just a fine. What would you recommend?
I would recommend that the penalty be a misdemeanor, and then looking at a degree of circumstances that may happen. I think if somebody hosts a small party and it's under control and they're cooperative, certainly that's at the discretion of the prosecuting body as to how you would deal with it. If it's a party of, let's say, hypothetically, a bunch of Sutter kids, and it's the entire, hypothetically, the graduating class and all of their friends, I think that there needs to be something that would impose at least a minimal jail time for those that are hosting it. They know what they're doing. It's clear, and it is a direct attack on everyone's families.
And I agree with you there. And I think prior to this, Chief, we don't have an ordinance within the city limits that does anything. It's just kind of an understanding that as adults we don't provide alcohol to minors. Number one. Number two is we don't have parties at our house with the alcohol or alcohol cabinet unlocked and we leave. So this is the first ordinance that's being introduced in our community that kind of puts some teeth into anything at all. Number one. Number two, and I think this is the first step of it, but the second step needs to be we do need to make this not only citywide but countywide and region-wide, so that you can't go out of Yuba City and go have a bonfire and a party outside of city limits because this ordinance does not apply to them at that point in time. But I believe there's also an out in here. For example, if I'm gone out of my house and my kids decide to throw a party and I have no knowledge of it, I'm not liable for that. So it's a matter of parents providing alcohol to their young teenage kids and supervising it, such as we had something happen within last year where they're all confined into the thing. But I think, once we have an ordinance, you can always improve on an ordinance. Coming back of seeing it, I think from the chief's report, last year there was over 100 calls to loud parties with children that were involved. And when you take a look at it, 100 calls in this community with kids with drinking alcohol, that's quite a bit.
Just for clarification, it was 100 total loud party calls.
Yeah.
Not involving just youth, but just a total 100 parties.
And how much would you say out of 100 involved underage drinking at the parties?
We don't track that. I couldn't. Okay. But it's something we will be able to track with the new ordinance.
Right, but I think it's a great start.
I have a question, Chief. Aren't there current laws such as contributing to the delinquency of a minor that would already do some of what this is doing or not?
They're actually different. This is meant to hold the person that's holding the party accountable for the ordinance. The one you were talking about, consumption, providing alcohol to a minor, that's more or less going out and buying something at a store in a public venue.
All right.
And I did want to address Councilmember Gill's comment about going to the county. I think what the Substance Abuse Steering Coalition's idea was to bring it to somebody first and be the starting point for this, and then venture out to the other areas, because we've talked, we agree that it has to be a stronger stance throughout the area to make it more. I think there's more potential for having parties outside in larger areas, but they're looking for a starting point, somebody to build the strength in, and this is what we're looking for, is somebody within the city.
And we thank you for bringing that to us first.
Mm-hmm. And through the mayor, I just want to say, yeah, there's laws and so forth out there for underage drinking as far as, purchasing at 21. But we as parents and adults of the community need to take better charge. And this will allow us to do that. And I appreciate you bringing this forward. I'm a strong proponent to protect our children. And we as adults across our community need to take that responsibility to do so. As far as the county, I had an earlier meeting and it was brought up that they are going to probably discuss that, I believe, in tomorrow's study session. They have a joint session going on, so it will be brought up in the county arena as well. But we appreciate it because we do need to take steps and protect. The kids are growing up fast, and they want to grow up fast, so we need to get a hold of this. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right. Unless there's any other questions of Chief, I'd like to open the public hearing. I have 4 speaker cards here. I'd like to encourage the speakers to, if you hear somebody else say something, don't just repeat it. Try to keep the thoughts original so that we don't spend a lot of time. And you have 3 minutes to speak, and I will be cutting people off at the 3 minutes. So I'm going to open the public hearing, and Janet Silver, if you would please step up first, and then following Janet, and I'd like to have you line up so that we don't have to waste time waiting for people, would be Carrie Orser,
Yeah.
Sara Davies, and then Damaris Vasquez, and Yesenia Cervantes. Yeah.
Mayor Dukes, do I start now?
Yes, go ahead.
Alrighty, start the clock. I didn't plan to go first, but what I'd like to talk about is in the early 90s, we started the Substance Abuse Steering Committee right here in this room. We formulated it, and through the years, it has evolved to include the youth, and you can see from the participation of the youth that they really do have a voice. So I'd like to reiterate some of the comments, just one sentence, that the chief brought up. Social and public policy, you will see a glossary of terms for Friday Night Live. The law, institutional rules and regulations, and formal and informal rules, and understanding that affect the lives of young people. FNL is committed to engaging youth in affecting and shaping such policies. That's what's before you. As you may recall, a couple years ago, we came forth with youth and we talked about the marijuana growing issue. Thank you very much for passing that. It is now in all of the governances in our Bi-County area, which is absolutely phenomenal. I happen to have, it came to my attention last year that there was a large party with 500 youth. If you don't think it had just an impact on those youth, you should visit some of the schools and the teachers and the staff and what they went through when they were debriefing with some of the youth that had either attended the party or were affected by that. Now I'd like to talk to you about Friday Night Live. We started out as a drinking, driving reduction program. In 1988, I was hired. We're no longer taking that charge. It's solely youth development. You look at these young people here on the SAS committee, they are part of the result of youth development in our community. The people sitting in the out there in the audience who are county employees and who are serving with the Substance Abuse Steering Committee should be commended for the work that they've been able to do with few amounts of funding. The funding that actually went behind this ordinance came from outside our community. That's the best kind of funding we can get. Nothing came out of our own community. It came from the East Coast, from a wonderful organization. The youth development model for Friday Night Live was $150,000 for 3 years. Some of these youth, I think they're too old to have been part of our SASC back in the day, but with that $150,000, we made an improvement throughout the Bi-County area as far as youth development is concerned. My 3 minutes are probably up, so I'll let you go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Janet. All right, go ahead, Carrie.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, and fellow neighbors. My name is Carrie Orser. I'm here as a parent in support of the social host ordinance. I raised 2 daughters here in Yuba City. I recognize the challenges facing parents of adolescents in the 21st century. I support adoption of this ordinance because it holds the adults accountable for putting youth at risk. I often hear people say they feel it's a parent's job to guide their children and teach them not to do risky things like drinking while underage. I agree, parents have a strong role as guides for their children, but I also believe all of the adults in a community have a role in helping protect all of our youth from the possible tragic results of poor judgment. Why would we expect every young person to make perfect decisions, regardless of the circumstances, when we know adults don't make perfect decisions? My heart breaks when I think of a local family who recently lost 3 young members due to the terrible decision of an adult who chose to drink and drive. We know the brains of adolescents are still growing and developing, and that the ability to make good decisions involves a part of the brain which is the last to mature. This is one of the reasons that the legal drinking age is 21. This ordinance would hold adults accountable and would act as a deterrent to those who might otherwise allow teens to drink in their homes. One of the responsibilities I accepted when I became a parent was the responsibility to childproof my home. I locked up items like cleaning products so my toddlers couldn't get them. As a parent of older children, it was my responsibility to make sure they and their friends couldn't get access to anything else dangerous like prescription drugs or alcohol. Unfortunately, not every parent takes this responsibility seriously. There are too many dangerous things that can happen when teens get access to alcohol, which is both intoxicating and addictive. This ordinance would hold adults accountable so that we wouldn't have to wait for a tragedy, such as a sexual assault or drunk driving accident, to punish adults who put youth at risk by permitting them to have access to alcohol in their homes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Sara Davies.
Hello, I'm Sara Davies. I'm volunteer for SASC, and you already talked about the delinquency issue, and just wanted to emphasize that the ordinance is civil in nature, not criminal in nature. If you guys wanted to make it stricter in the future, maybe we could change the ordinance so that it would have the possibility of a misdemeanor at first. But I think that it would be good to go ahead and pass the ordinance as it's written right now. And I live in the city limits right now, but I'm moving to the county, and I would like to personally commit my time as a volunteer in the future to also push, if you guys pass it, push for it within the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Damaris? I guess we have tag team here. Go ahead.
Yeah. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Maurice. I go to Yuba City High School, and I'm part of the SASC Youth. I'm Yesenia, and I also go to Yuba City High School, and I'm part of SASC Youth. So from what we have seen, is that adults providing alcohol for parties has become a norm, and they usually provide the alcohol since most of the people that are invited to the parties are underage and cannot purchase it for themselves. So we're here to basically support as youth. We'd like to state that a lot of our classmates aren't very smart when making decisions, so this would prevent them from making some decisions. And a lot of the wonderful ladies that went before us talked a lot about what we were going to say, but that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else who'd like to speak? Please state your name and address.
My name's Tammy Graham. I live on Dustin Drive. John Buckland, he covered most of the things I wanted to say. Good job. Hello, Mayor and council members. I'm a parent volunteer for SASC, and I just want everyone, it is my right as a parent to make decisions for my children. It's not any other parent's right. And I know that we should know where our children are, and you know that we can't always count on that. I was almost killed in 2001 in a car accident. I was hit by an older teen, 19 years old, and he had younger teens in his car. They had left a party. They were going about 90 miles an hour and hit us out on Highway 99. The guy driving the car I was in, to this day, he'll never be the same. He had massive head injuries, UC Davis for almost a year, and then rehabilitation after that. And by the grace of God, I am walking because I was crushed. My legs were crushed left under the dash. Had to be cut out of the car. They had just left a party. So the driver of that vehicle, as young as he was, got 6 years in prison. And I just can't fathom one of my children ever having to go through that or have to deal with knowing that they took someone's life. And so I just want to encourage you all to really consider this. And thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Tammy. Would anyone else like to speak on this item? All right, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Bring it back to the council for comments or any further questions.
I don't have any questions, but I'll make a motion to, with staff's recommendation, to pass this ordinance.
And I'll second that, and I think it's a much needed ordinance, and let's keep moving forward. You're doing a great job.
All right, there was discussion of perhaps changing the ordinance or...
Now, all I would request at this point is that the police department track closely the calls over the next 6 months. especially going into the season that we are. Among high school kids, it is the drinking season and prom and graduation and all the other events that go on. I'd like to see a tracking of it so we have a better idea of what we're looking at on a more global perspective for the city.
Right. And then just one further comment. I would hope that if this passes, this is the first read, or what we're waiving the first reading on this. This will come back to us. But between now and then and the graduation season, that this message gets out to our community that we are not going to tolerate adults who are going to provide a venue and alcohol or other things that they should not be doing, and that we are going to take this ordinance very seriously. So, with that, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. See you in 2
Thank
weeks.
you to all the teenagers that are here today.
All right, next item. We'll give a minute in case everybody wants to make a mass exodus here. We won't force you to stay the rest of the meeting. Oh, okay.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. That's right. The projector. Thank you. Okay. For those of you in the audience, we've had a malfunction of the projector this evening, but if you want to see the presentations, they will be available on the city's website tomorrow.
Or we could get a candle. I could go back there and do puppet shows.
You would do that, yeah.